Chilean National Socialist Movement Origins and Theories. In the early 1900s, Chile was undergoing rapid industrialization and urbanization, which arose new problems and solutions. During the late 1920s and the early 1930s, the marches and socialists under Marmaduke Grove would become prominent in Chilean politics, threatening the conservative liberal way of life. Many parties were formed looking for answers to the Marxist and conservative thought. The economic crisis of 1929 and the government conflicts put into question the legitimacy of capitalism and liberal democracy. Nazismo found its place among reaction and revolution as a nationalist party of messianic proportions. Nazismo was the child of seeking the balance between traditional and modern thought that Chile was undergoing. The traditional elite of Chile were being challenged by all sides of power. The thinking of the liberal thought challenged throughout the world, which was no less the case in Chile. During the days of Juan Esteban Montero and his presidency, the man who gave Nazismo its start was Jorge González von Maris, a half Chilean, half German lawyer. At the age of 31 years old, Jorge would circulate his thoughts for the first time by showing it to others through hand and hearsay using a small and self-published feuilleton. A feuilleton is like a newspaper serial. The news and initial spread of his thought initially attracted the urban middle class and several well-off young people. Jorge would announce a theoretical link in the anti-liberal nationalist conservatism which was growing out of the 20th century. This was a new type of nationalism, in being mesocratic and ethnic, and developed in a sensible ideology to answer the day's social question. This early Nazista thought was cultivated by a social Darwinist thought and the theories of Gustav Le Bon and Oswald Spengler, along with many other anti-liberal thinkers. Jorge Gonzalez would say in his first speeches, "We must react, but not to re-establish a past definitively gone or to maintain a present that our consciences cannot accept, but to forge a grandiose future that places our nationality on a plane today not even sounded." When Jorge was in his 20s, he wrote a series of reflections about the social and spiritual decay of nationality that was happening. Jorge wrote a book named The Worker Problem in Chile, in which he would write, "In our country, as elsewhere, the new working class has been condemned to bear the full weight of the profound socio-economic upheavals introduced by modern capitalism, day by day more numerous. I remain, from the beginning, given to the harsh laws of supply and demand, whose implacable and counterbalanced game have quickly risen and taken her to a state of profound decay and misery, left almost entirely out of the hands of the ruling class and devoid even most of the rudimentary morals and intellectual agreements. The working class of this country has suffered a horrible wound." One of the starting tenets of Nazismo Chileno was the first position of anti-democracy, wanting a restoration of aristocracy, as the lines of anti-liberal historians, wanting a populist movement that well articulated in the new social sectors, a popular mesocratic political base whose actors that lent themselves to occupy a prominent place in the mobilization of new demands. Nazismo was an integrating project that found its justification in the broad network of populism. By assimilating the patria with the people, it tried to attract large masses of the electorate in projects as different with different methods, as renouncing the oligarchy and condemning communism. However, all of these things, one cannot separate the movement from Jorge González von Maris and his heritage and his lively character that were all responsible for the MNS. Another fundamental point that explains the birth of Nazismo were the strong influences of European fascist groups on the international plane. Fascism was and is the successful alternatives. The glorious third position in the middle of the global crisis. Nazismo took these European characteristics and nationalized it in a Chilean form. Now we will talk about the actual manifesting of Nazismo into reality. Here we see Carlos Keller, a Chilean of German heritage, writer, comrade of González von Medes, recall a figure called General Diaz. The ideas of González von Medes caught the attention of middle-class intellectuals who were associated with the nationalist world. One of these people would be known as the retired General Francisco Javier Diaz Valderrama, who was obsessed with the Nazi Party and Hitler. General Diaz knew Europe well, of which he actually lived in Europe for the past 2 years. Diaz was experienced in the methods and instructions for organizing a military, and his service actually included the Imperial German Army. Diaz adopted German customs and even traveled publicly with a swastika. Needless to say, Diaz uh, had thought of the idea of making an exact replica of German National Socialism in Chile. Me personally, I find it interesting how before the National Socialists were even in power, people were trying to emulate them. And you see how people these days they keep on wanting to emulate something foreign without actually making something that fits their own person. And so we will see where General Diaz would actually contact González von Medes for the creation of an NSDAP party in Chile, the National Socialist German Workers' Party in Chile. Keller recalls how Diaz was to make a copy of Hitler's program in Spanish. Von Medes' response to General Diaz, keep in mind, this is a conversation between a Germanophile and a half-German who romanticized German culture and history. Jorge Gonzalez would respond to the initial the initial request of General Diaz to make an exact copy of German National Socialism in Chile with a imitation of the German model will produce nothing. In order to organize a new political force in Chile, it is necessary to base it on its own national idiosyncrasy and give it a spiritual content of its own. I do not think in a political matter we can learn a lot from Germany. And today we see the same thing with neo-Nazis who like to emulate National Socialism today. A lot of times they don't even do half of the tenets of National Socialism. I can guarantee you most National Socialists don't even know like the what was it, the first 12 points of National Socialism. So it's it worked in Germany, right? But like the saying goes, a square fits the square hole, but the square won't fit the circle hole. It's a solution for their own cause and their own problems, but that doesn't necessarily mean it'll work everywhere else. It not being applicable everywhere. And the most ironic part, right, is Jorge González von Medes idealized Germany and German culture. So I think this was actually came to a shock to General Diaz, who having like lived the German culture, emulating it, serving in the Imperial German Army, I think he was a little bit shocked about that. After General Diaz saw that his proposals did not echo well and the future leaders of the MNS. General Diaz went on by himself to found the Legion of Social Nationalists. Afterwards, Keller and Gonzalez would meet up and train Gonzalez to become a leader figure. The leader in their eyes should be the only one capable of realizing that faith, the faith, and turning it into action, because he would be the one that embodied the truth in this case. Keller would write in this line, I had not understood, and that was precisely the essential thing, the need to transform ideas into political action, to put hands to work and organize a political force that was capable of redeeming the patria. After many meetings, the talk of necessity to create the definitive program was created. The mission was entrusted to Keller, and on April the 5th, 1932, the official founding of the National Socialist Movement in Chile happened.